problems. My brother was 24, now I'm 22. My body hit the floor when the first sergeant gave me the news. If only I'd bitten off more instead of underestimating how much I could chew, he'd be up here on the stage with me and I would introduce him to you. Although I'm not exactly sure what more I could have done when I was 1,000 miles away and I was learning to handle a gun, all the while he was home struggling while I was marching and having fun. I guess I wanted my pops to be proud of me when my training was said and done, but his pride ain't worth anything to me if it meant being his only son. Now the camouflage makes me sick if I stare at it for too long. But nevertheless, I came home dressed in my uniform, mentally stressing myself to be calm and stay strong as I knelt beside his casket where his body laid embalmed, holding my breath. I couldn't believe that he was gone, and I couldn't believe what I saw. His eyes were closed and his fingers were crossed, and something didn't feel right. Something was wrong deep down, and that's when I realized that I'm the big brother now. So I took off my dog tags and sent them to go with them underground. I said, I know you're watching over me, and I promise I'll make you proud, but then again, I'm 18, and I have no idea how to process any of this stuff, and now I'm talking way too loud, and there's other people in this church that can hear me, so I should probably watch my mouth. So I looked up at my mother, and she looked back at her soldier as we contemplated his death. And I relived it over and over, and ever since that moment I felt a new weight on my shoulders, and it hasn't been lifted yet. It's new problems. So there was this guy. We've been through it all, from football under blue skies to straight up brawls. We even gave each other black eyes, and he helped me determine wrong from right, and when I was living in my car, he took me in despite our different walks of life. And when my brother died, he told me I didn't always have to play the tough guy role. He said I didn't always have to be in control. He would say, lighten up, why you gotta be so cold? Why do you always think you gotta be so bold? Well, anyway, one day he tripped over himself and he knocked his head, so they rolled him into a room on a hospital bed, and it wasn't even a discussion what we expected to be the answer. It was just another concussion, right? They found lymphoma, stage 4. He had cancer, with a 63% survival rate. And he didn't even tell us for weeks after he got the news. He just isolated himself and he got holed up in his room, and we noticed he was a little irate, but really it was nothing new. I mean, it happens sometimes, you know, we've all been through it. But when he started to lose weight and his aura became infused with a look on his face that was always filled with gloom and confusion, we came to the conclusion we needed to take the initiative to see what we could do to help our brother out and remind him that we're a family. And it ain't about family trees and ancestries, but even if it was, they say that blood is thicker than water, and we plan to drown him in our love and remind him that he's tough. But it was rough, man. It was rough. Watching him lose his hair, lose his faith, being there to witness his battle between hope and despair. But at the end of the day, he survived. His cancer went into remission, and today he's alive. But since then we've strayed, and somewhere along the line life took us different ways, and now everything is different. We've tried to rekindle, but even when I'm in the same room as him, I think of how much I miss him. It's new problems. Now don't get me wrong, my brother wasn't a bad person. He was a troublemaker, so it seemed like he always came first, and my baby sister was growing up, but little me needed attention, so I'd act out in class and I found myself in detention. And teachers would always mention, you know, he's smart and he's attentive, but he's got all this energy and he's got nowhere to send it. And my parents would always nod, but by the end of the sentence, it seemed like they had enough, like I wasn't growing up how they intended. Although I always did my best to blend in, gather around the television set and play World of Warcraft with them for hours on end. And it seemed futile trying to gather their attention, so eventually I didn't even bother. I wanted a mom and a dad, and I wound up with a mother and father. Which really wasn't all that bad, you know. I had clothes on my back and food on the table, I had a roof over my head and 900 channels on cable, I had 3 pillows on my bed and a high-speed internet, but really we were lacking a stable connection. I don't want to turn this into a therapy session, but instead it was constant corrections, chin check-ins, a thirst for perfection, and hotel check-ins. A vacation in Mexico for a 3rd stay, and survival once a week on Thursdays. I remember I got working papers on my 14th birthday, and I had to find my own ride to work on my first day. And it seemed like since we were in the 1st grade, they were trying to convince me we were scraping the bottom of the barrel. They would say things like, unfortunately, trees don't grow to narrow, and our budget is narrow, but be thankful that you're not growing up in the ghettos and boroughs of Queens like your pops. We can't imagine a life like that for you, so stop playing with your Xbox in your room and get walking through this 2-car garage in this bi-level home and put a helmet on your dome, and heaven knows you better get pedaling on that brand new mountain bike so you can bring home that money, money, money. can't help but laugh despite the fact that in hindsight it really isn't that funny. Because they were kicking back and relaxing instead of really getting to know me. They were shoving me into real life instead of taking the time to show me how to live and how to fight for what's right. How to, like, do what's right. They let the schoolhouse teach me to read and write, but they made sure I knew how to count. They were in a big hurry to set up my bank account. They weren't as concerned about my report card as that money, money, money. Which is why I believe that money is the root of all evil. Because listen, I've got good-looking parents, but they're ugly people. And I don't mean to be rude or offend, but I refuse to split ends and pretend that I don't condemn their condescension. Although I'm willing to contend it wasn't their intention to render our relationship in question beyond mending. And people often recommended and offered up suggestions that we should sit in reflection and tend to this mess, but at the bitter end I feel like a friend when I walk through their door. Maybe we could have been good friends, but not anymore. Because despite how common my company is, I've always felt like a downtrodden kid. So nowadays, I don't worry about how thick my wallet is. I just sit down in front of them and I solemnly promise that I'm doing well for myself instead of telling them about all these new problems. Thank you guys for listening. I appreciate your time.
Yeah.